Hello everyone, I'm Red Team Beaver and welcome back to day 24 of the Advanced Cyber 3 by TryHackMe's. So this challenge is all about post-exploitation, and you may actually know that day 24 of the Advanced Cyber means that it's Christmas Eve. So have a Merry Christmas for every one of you that will celebrate it, and if you don't, well still, I hope that you have a splendid day. And let's dive right into the theory aspect of post-exploitation. So what is post-exploitation? Well, post-exploitation has three primary objectives in my mind. So there's to escalate privileges. So let's say that you get a low-level shell on a Windows system, for example, and you want to privilege escalate to admin because you need admin to do some stuff. Well, that's how you would do it, right? You would look for ways to escalate your privileges, and that's part of the post-exploitation step of the ethical hacking methodology, right? So next, what we can do also is attempt to maintain persistence within the target environment. So what does that mean? Well, it means that let's say that your machine gets shut down, right? Let's say that you are inside an accountant's machine. Well, that accountant will shut down this machine at the end of the day, and that could kill your access. So you need ways to get this access back without having to hack back all the way. And finally, a very useful thing that you can do during post-exploitation step is actually loot, right? That's how we call it. And you can look for ashes, for example, and attackers basically would want to dump password ashes and attempt to crack them in order to get text user password, well, plain text user passwords. So this is what we'll be doing today as well. So let's talk about passwords a bit, right? And most importantly about password hashing. So password hash is basically when you take a password in plain text, then you input it into a hashing function, which will output your plain text modified as random bits of stuff. And basically what's important about this is that this is a one-way transformation, right? There's no way to get back your password from this unless you know the password and then you rehash it, right? So what does that do? Well, for example, if you were to look at these three examples, so password 12, password 123, and password 1234, well, if you pass them through the same function, so through the same MD5 function, you see that the output results in totally random stuff, right? It doesn't lead to anything else, right? But what if you get these ashes, right? So what if I give you these ashes and I'm like, okay, find the passwords. Well, you could attempt to crack these ashes. And how do you crack ashes? Well, that's a subject for this part of the course. And basically cracking ashes will basically be passing combination of potential input to the hashing algorithm in use, and we would compare these ashes against our target hash. So for example, if I give you these three ashes up here, and I give you a word list that contains password 12 inside of it, well, password 12 would be hashed using MD5, and then the program would compare the output of password 12 when hashed to this, which will be the same output, right? It will be the same thing. And then the tool will be like, oh, there you go, you have it. This is the hash I have, because even though it changes wildly depending on our input, the same input will always give the same hash, right? And how does it work within Windows? Well, within Windows, these hashes are actually stored inside of the SAM database. And this SAM database will contain these two common hashes. I will let you read them. And basically, our goal as a hacker would be to dump these ashes into, well, our end so we can crack them, right? And to dump hashes, we can use Mimikatz, and Mimikatz is actually made by a security researcher from France called Benjamin Delpy. And this guy creates this Mimikatz tool that is so interesting. And basically how Mimikatz work is it just uses the way Windows insecurely, arguably insecurely, way of Windows storing these hashes, right? So that's what we'll be doing today, basically. So make sure that your machine is turned on, and let's go straight to the practical part of this machine. All right. So once you have started the machine and the machine is started, as always, I'll go show split view and I will view it in full screen, and then I will turn this off. So now, as you can see, I am on the desktop and we can now answer questions. So the first question is, what is the username of the other user on the machine? So let's first take a look at our own username. I will close this and I will actually go into Mimikatz, right? Because we're going to need it, and I will open my command prompt here. All right, so let's do who am I to see what our privileges are. And we are administrator. Well, not our privileges, but what our username is. And so there's different ways that we could look for the username of the other users on the system. But in my case, I'll actually do net users. And we'll see that Emily is right here. So let's grab Emily and let's answer the first question. Oops. This is going to be annoying, the fact that I cannot copy from this. Oh well. All right. So what is the NTLM hash of this user? So what is the NTLM hash of Emily? Well, remember, we can use Mimikatz to do to know that. So how do we use Mimikatz? Well, let's do there, and we see that there's x64. Let's go to x64 because we are on a 64-bit architecture. And it's there again. So you see that there's a couple of files inside, and there's actually mimikatz.exe, right? So let's do mimikatz.exe. And just press enter, right? So now we're inside Mimikatz. So what we need to do first is make sure that we have access to our different Mimikatz privileges, right? So let's do privilege 2 colons and then debug. Now, what we want to see is this. It's privilege 20. Okay, that means that, boom, we're fine. We got it. All right, so what is the NTLM hash of this user? So the NTLM hash of this user, we can get it by doing this command right here. Sec_url_sa logon passwords, right? Oops. So let's do sec_url_sa 2 colons again, and then logon passwords. Now we see that this is a quite a lengthy dump, so let's scroll all the way back up from this output, and we see that Emily is right here. Now Emily has a NTLM hash of this, so let's attempt to grab it. I manually copied this hash, this NTLM hash, into the answer right here. I'm not sure why this does this to me, but hopefully it didn't do it for you and you managed to copy it easily. So now we need to figure out the password for this user. Now, remember that we can use John, which we saw right here, to crack it. We can also use Ashcat, which Ashcat is a newer software, and I actually prefer Ashcat, but let's just use John, right? Because it's quite easy to use. So what we need to do first is actually echo this hash into a hash.txt file. So if we're to cat hash.txt, we see that the hash is contained here. Next, what we need to do is actually unzip our rocku word list. So you see that the rocku word list is used here, and it's actually the default word list for a lot of CTFs. And we have it by default on our Kali machine. However, by default, it's archived, right? So if we're to look inside user share word lists, we'll see that rocku as a .gz right here. So what we can do is sudo gunzip, well, gunzip, and then go to user share rocku, word lists rocku. Now doing so will actually unzip the rocku word list, and as you can see, it's now usable. Just quick update, I made a slight mistake whenever I was recopying this hash. So I had a 5 that was too much. So now I've corrected it, and now it should work actually. As you can see, it indeed worked with the same command that we used previously. It's just my hash was wrong basically. And I'm not sure why this validated the answer, even though it was wrong. So what I did was I refreshed TryHackMe and I simply used this answer right here. So I'm not sure why TryHackMe validated the hash, because basically what happened was I used Emily's hash, which if I can find there, and I basically used I put a 5 too many here, right? I wrote C559 instead of C59, and it shouldn't have validated, but for some reason it did. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but it was just a typo, and now it's fixed. So as you can see, without the typo, now it works. So it's 123456789 and that's the password. So just like that, guys, we've completed the Christmas Eve challenge, which was about post-exploitation, and I'm glad that we're back into the pen testing territory, right? I'm glad that we're back into the more interesting side for me. I know that blue team is super interesting, but I prefer this side of password cracking, post-exploitation, etc. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the outro. Thank you guys so much for watching day 24 of the Advanced Cyber 3 by TryHackMe. Today's challenge was quite interesting. I made a small typo, but we got it fixed super fast. And I hope that you learned something. It's quite interesting to see all of the various tools that can be used during post-exploitation. Mimikatz is only one small part of post-exploitation. And yeah, it's a important skill to have. So I will see you tomorrow for day 25, which should be the final day of the Advanced Cyber 3. So I hope you enjoyed so far, and if you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. If you liked the video, like it and subscribe. It always helps me a lot, and I will see you tomorrow for the Christmas challenge. Bye bye.